My name is Prinz, and I'm one of the owners of the Mob Shop, which is a bicycle shop in Ojai, California, that started out in Miners Oaks with my partner Kelly, who had this little bicycle program at a private school, and he took donations of bikes and taught kids how to tear them apart and put them back together, and they'd sell these monstrous bikes and make money for the projects that they were having at school. And so that's how the Mob Shop started. And I got involved after that, and the two of us, it just started growing, you know. Kelly's really good with the activist side of things, and I'm kind of a builder, and have been making most of the last 20 years of my life making a living building stuff. And so we moved into another shop spot, and I built all the interior out, and it came out kind of nice, and it just exploded from there. And then we found this gas station, and as we outgrew our last spot, managed to get a lease on it and pulled it off, and here we are. I grew up in the country in small town Texas, and we didn't have a whole lot, and so I was always tinkering around with whatever I had to play with and trying to keep it running. And so after that, I figured, well, if you like working on stuff, all you can do is become an engineer. So I got this engineering degree, and about a week later I was sick of it. Well, I exaggerate a little bit, maybe it was 3 years, but I ended up getting laid off, thankfully, and I moved to California, and that's about the time I got involved in bicycles. I quit drinking and needed a substitute, so I started riding bikes. I was on a bike shop budget living in California, which is not easy, and so I was looking for another thing to do, and I had this friend named Dana Hardy who was this amazing woodworker, and he worked out of this shitty old barn that was falling in, and the roof leaked, and it was full of garbage, and he built furniture for his friends, basically. And he would just take a pile of crap and turn it into an art piece. And I was always like, man, he was like my role model. He was an idol, that he could make a living making some of the coolest furniture I'd ever seen out of crap. You know, really inexpensive materials, or used, or found objects. And so that interests me enormously, and so I quit my job and bought a welding machine, and he said I could move into the shop with him in the barn, and that's how I started. I remember my first job, I was welding horseshoes together to make these little cowboys. I mean, I'd do whatever it took to make a living, and somehow or another, I bumped into this friend of mine who was opening up a coffee shop and a retail store in this cool metal building, and he hired me to do it. And that's kind of where it all started. And so we would go out and just find junk and crap, and we built this humongous sliding wall that separated the retail store from the coffee shop, so they could have the coffee shop open when the retail wasn't. And it was just made out of just industrial fans and fencing, and it was rad. And it was kind of this combination of funky reuse. I mean, we made a fountain out of a motor out of a car. You know, that was the fountain. And so we didn't throw anything away, and that's kind of how I got started. And yeah, so, and then that evolved into point of purchase displays, which, how do I talk about that? Oh, so anyway, this was a clothing company that had this retail store, and they needed trade show booths and point of purchase displays, and so they just turned me loose, and I started building stuff out of just weird stuff that I'd find at the scrapyard, and just trying to make them really beautiful and soft. But a lot of it was just crap, you know, but depending on how you put it together, you could kind of make something that was cool. And you know, that was 20 years ago, and it just evolved into like a proper furniture business there after that. And anyway, I got sick of it after quite a few years, and I gave all my equipment to a friend of mine who lived up in the Bay Area, who used to work for me, and I moved to France and just started like doing some other stuff. And I took a hiatus of about 10 years. I just got tired of working on stuff, and frankly, I'm kind of tired of it still. I'm ready to do something different, but we got this opportunity to remodel this dump, and so I called my friend up in San Francisco and I said, hey, I need all my tools back. So I drove up and loaded it all up and brought it back down here, and we started working on the mob shop. Take 3, I guess you'd call it. And we didn't have a big budget, so we had to reuse as much as we could. You know, the whole front of the building was terrible. All the windows and doors were knocked out, but we managed to reuse all the doors in different areas. We cut up the front slab. We took out all this concrete and we cut it up into nice rectangles and made benches out of those. You know, we reused the lifts in the store. Anything that we tore apart, we figured out some other place to put it, and only because we had to. I mean, not only. No, let me back that up. Anything that we took apart, we reused somewhere else. You know, we had to, for one thing, because our budget wouldn't allow anything else, and I'm kind of a recycle Nazi anyway, so that's probably not the right word to use. But anyway, my employees kind of hate me because I go digging through the trash all the time and make sure that they get the right things in the right bins. And I learned that in France, because you'll see the littlest old lady walking out in her husband's house shoes, and she's got a bag of wine bottles and she's sticking them in the recycle one at a time, you know, and it's like, they're doing it over there, why can't we do it over here, you know? So anyway, when we took over the lease on this place, everybody in town people were pretty happy, because it had been vacant for 17 years, I think, and I mean, it was terrible. We took out 400 tons of asphalt and concrete, and we didn't really have a big budget for the landscaping, and as it turned out, the community came and said, hey, how can we help? So anyway, we had this friend that came up with the idea of setting up a registry at one of the nurseries, so that if people wanted to donate or buy a plant or a tree or whatever they could, and it was fabulous. I mean, I don't think we didn't have to spend hardly anything on landscaping, because the town just came in droves and donated, and just out of pure thankfulness, you know, that we were turning this place into something kind of nice. So